Morning light bled through the glass walls of the penthouse, catching on the polished marble floors and gilded edges of the crystal chandelier. The space was silent except for the subtle clinking of wine slippers as she walked into the open kitchen, a warm mug of tea cradled in her hands. She looked like softness incarnate, messy bun, sleepy eyes, the sleeves of her oversized sweater slipping over her knuckles. But there was tension in the air, one she had not noticed until she glanced up and saw him standing near the counter. John Jungkook, her husband, CEO by day, but she knew what lay beneath the surface, the secrets whispered in blood and shadows, the calm, cold facade that masked a much more dangerous world. He was already dressed in charcoal gray, his shirt unbuttoned and the top cufflinks gleaming under the sunlight. His head was slicked back, freshly styled, but his expression was carved from stone, sharp, unyielding. His jaw was clenched, his eyes dark with restraint. Do you enjoy testing my limits this early, wine? His voice was low, threateningly quiet, a warning that usually made men cower. Wine blinked, confused, holding the cup tighter. What are you talking about? Don't play innocent. His voice sharp, and you told Minho about the meeting at the port, didn't you? She looked stunned. Minho, Jungkook, I barely even spoke to him yesterday. He just asked why you were not home for dinner, and he said maybe you were busy at the docks. Jungkook's eyes narrowed, his entire posture shifted, tension coiling in his shoulders like a snake ready to strike. And what do you think that information does in someone else's hand, huh? You think it's just harmless dinner gossip? Why? Took a step forward, her voice rising in protest. He's your cousin, his family. You don't think he already knows where your meetings are. He grew up in the same damn business. And that's exactly why I don't trust him. There was a hard pause. His voice wasn't loud, but every word hit like a bullet. Controlled, calculated. Once chest rose and fell rapidly, frustration clearing in her veins. So now I'm the enemy because I told your cousin something he probably already knew. I'm your wife, Jungkook, not your enemy. Jungkook scoffed, stepping closer now, not in affection, but in confrontation. His towering form shadowed hers, and for a second she could feel the temperature drop around them. You're my wife, which means you don't get to make careless mistakes like that. One slip of the tongue from you can get people killed. And maybe if you talk to me instead of treating me like some outsider in your world, I wouldn't be left guessing what's allowed and what's not. Her voice cracked, but her eyes were blazing. He stared at her for a long second. The muscle in his jaw twitched again. You chose this life the second you said yes to me. No, Jungkook, I chose you. But you keep pushing me out of every part of yourself that matters. Silence for a few long seconds. The world stood still. Even the city below them seemed to quiet. Jungkook's eyes darkened, not with rage, but something colder, icy, distant. Then he picked up his watch and phone from the counter, slid the phone into his pocket, and without looking at her, he muttered under his breath, Voice like stale. I don't need your help in anything, Wine, just stay out of it. She stood frozen. What? He finally looked at her, not with hatred, not even anger, just something tired, detached, as if he had finally decided to close the door. I'm better off handling things without emotional interference. He didn't wait for her reaction, he turned and walked down the hallway, every step echoing with unspoken words. When he disappeared into his home office, the door clicked shut with soft finality, and just like that, the warmth drained from the room. Wine stood in the center of the living room, her fingers tightening around her mug until her knuckles turned white. Her throat felt dry, her chest was tight, and yet her eyes didn't spill any tears. Instead, she walked silently toward the couch, sank down into its cushions, and stared blankly ahead. The morning light now feeling too harsh, too cruel. He didn't want her help, he didn't even want her near the things that mattered to him. But why did it feel like he needed her more than ever? The silence in the penthouse was deafening once. Jungkook's footsteps vanished behind the office door. Wine sat motionless on the cream colored couch, her mug now resting cold in her hands. Her eyes stared blankly at the glass windows ahead, but her mind was elsewhere. A chaotic storm of thoughts, emotions, and egos of a man who only ever let her into his world halfway. The argument replayed over and over in her head like a broken record. I don't need your help in anything, Ryan, just stay out of it. The words clung to her skin like frost, sharp and unshakable. And that was when it started. The first tear slid quietly down her cheek, then another and another, until her vision blurred. She didn't sob, she didn't cry loudly. She just sat there in silence, letting the pain fall in the shape of tears. And then, without warning, her mind took her somewhere far away. Flashback. The memory came in slowly like a dream coated in snow. One was no more than 7 years old, her tiny hands buried deep inside red mittens as she sat alone on a frosty park bench. Snowflakes drifted from the sky like feathers, soft and silent. The world was quiet, save for the crunch of her boots as she swung her feet beneath the bench. She looked down at her snow covered path with a little frown. A group of boys had thrown a snowball at her earlier, and though it didn't hurt much, it embarrassed her. Her little heart felt heavy, so she sat alone, distant, sulking. And then warm hands wrapped around her tiny shoulders, her mother. She knelt beside her, brushing the snowflakes gently off her daughter's hair, and looked at her with those wise, nurturing eyes. Something is bothering you, isn't it? Why nodded quietly. Listen to me, my little moon. If something disturbs your peace, you don't have to hold it inside. You're not born to carry everyone's weight on your shoulders. She kissed Wine's forehead softly. You're allowed to walk away from what hurts you, especially if it's disrespect. Especially if it's silence where love should be. Wine blinked, the memory faded like breath against cold glass, but the words stayed, especially if it's silence where love should be. She inhaled shakily, wiping her tears with the sleeve of her sweater. Her gaze shifted toward the hallway. Jungkook had disappeared down. Her chest throbbed, but beneath the ache, something had changed. Clarity. Mom was right. I should not bear this. She stood slowly, feeling her legs tremble a little, but she moved with purpose now. Her fingers reached for the suitcase in the closet. A dusty reminder of a girl who used to believe she would never need to leave. But she packed it anyway. One by one, she folded the pieces of her life, a few clothes, her journal, a photo frame from their honeymoon. She stared at it a little longer before setting it back down. She wasn't running away. She was walking toward herself again. She scribbled a note, her fingers steady, expression blank. But her heart loud, the last tear fell as she zipped the suitcase shut and quietly she left. The sun had dipped below the horizon by the time Jungkook returned from the office. He loosened his tie as he stepped into the penthouse, exhausted and cold, expecting the usual. Her soft humming in the kitchen, the smell of dinner, the sound of her feet rushing toward him. But there was only silence. Wine, he called out like he always did, no answer. He walked further inside, setting his briefcase on the table. Wine, still nothing. The apartment felt colder than usual, still, and then his eyes caught it. A small folded paper sitting neatly on the edge of the coffee table. Her handwriting, his heart skipped once, sharply, and his fingers reached for it. He unfolded the note slowly. Jungkook, you don't need my help. I heard you loud and clear. I loved you more than I have ever loved anyone. I waited for you to let me in, to trust me, to see me as more than someone who just stood beside you. But loving you shouldn't have meant losing myself in the process. I'm not someone you can keep at a distance while expecting loyalty. Besides, you don't need me, so I'm leaving before I forget that I need myself. Divorce papers will be at your home soon. I won't make a scene. I won't beg. Goodbye. The paper trembled slightly in his hand, but his face remained unreadable, expressionless, except for his eyes. There was something dangerous behind them now. Not rage, not indifference, something darker, something broken, but she was gone, and this time he had no one to blame but himself.